The overture has played. The audience is sitting in their seats, waiting to see a new musical. And for the first time, Sutton Foster comes out on stage and begins to sing. That's what happens in Not for the Life of Me from Thoroughly Modern Millie, which introduced many, many people to the new star, Sutton Foster, who of course has gone on to become one of Broadway's premier leading ladies. So today we're going to take a little look at Not for the Life of Me here on Music Theater Theory. Whoa! Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mateo Chavez-Lewis. I'm a professional musical theater composer and music director splitting my time right now between Toronto and New York. It's been a while since I posted a video on the channel. I music directed the Canadian premiere of Bring It On in that time. I also now have a show that's going up off-Broadway in January called The Opening, so stay tuned on this channel for more information about that. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're here to talk about Not for the Life of Me from Thoroughly Modern Millie and some of the cool music theory behind it. So let's jump into that. One of the things I love about Not for the Life of Me is that right away, in these first two bars of music, we know exactly where and, more importantly, when the show is set. Of course, there's been an overture before this, and the overture was very, very jazzy, so we get a sense that we're in the jazz era, probably like 1920, 1930. But even if there wasn't an overture, just these two bars of music are so jazz-influenced that we would be able to place ourselves there in time, just from these first two bars of music. And the way they do that, listen to how jazzy these chords are. Ooh, do you hear that? When we talk about chords sounding jazzy, that chord sound that is like that very jazzy sound, usually there's a direct relationship between how quote-unquote jazzy a chord sounds and how many extensions the chord has. So already in these first two bars of music, there's a big like music theory lesson opportunity here. Extensions are basically every note in the chord beyond the original triad. So if we were to play just a C major chord, for example, we call that a triad because there's 3 notes in it. But if we were to keep adding notes following that same pattern, those notes that we add on top are called extensions. And altogether, they make a pretty jazzy sound, right? Another thing that we can do to a chord to make it sound jazzier is we can do alterations. So for example, that normal C major triad, that's a little too boring for us here in Jazzland. What if we just increase that interval? We just take this G and we raise it a semitone. We turn it into a G sharp. Then we've got that very, very jazzy sound. And that's exactly what's happening here. If we take a D major triad, that's D, F sharp, A. Then we add some extensions, C and E. And then we add an alteration. We take this A and we turn it into a B flat. Now, we have this very jazzy D9 sharp 5 chord, and we can just take these notes and put them up here, and that's exactly the chord that we have. So we've got this like very jazzy sound coming right out the gate in the first two bars of Not for the Life of Me, which places us firmly in the 1920s. Like, it's amazing how in 2 bars of music, just because of the harmony they're using, they can give us the feeling of the time and place that we're in before any character has even said a word. And now Sutton Foster begins to sing, but it's not the classic Sutton Foster big brassy belt yet. Right now we're starting at a piano dynamic, and it's freely, it feels rubato. And in this first little section of this song, Jeanine Tesori and Dick Scanlon, they pull a magic trick off. They try to convince us that this is a different kind of song. Let me show you what I mean by that. We start with a pretty standard AAB, and we all think we're gonna have an AABA song form. AABA song form I talk about a lot on this channel because it's a classic jazz song form where the first section, the A section, repeats, and then we have a different section, the B section, and then we come back to that first section, the A section again. A, B, A. In this song, we start with this A. I studied all the pictures in magazines and books. I memorized the subway map too. It's 1 block north to Macy's and 2 to Brothers Brooks. Manhattan, I prepared for you. Beautiful. That's our first section. That's our A section. And then it repeats. You certainly are different from what they have back home, where nothing's over 3 stories high. And no one's in a hurry or wants to roam, but I do, though they wonder why. That's exactly the same, except for that very last note. And then a few little differences in... No, literally the rhythm is slightly different the way it's written on the page, but yeah, it's basically exactly the same notes. So, our A section has repeated twice. If this were a classic A-A-B-A, we would now get the B section, which is a different melody. And lo and behold, look what we get, a different melody. They said I would soon be good and lonely. They said I would sing the homesick blues. So I always have this ticket in my pocket, a ticket home in my pocket, to do with as I choose. That's a weird jazzy note there, but if this were a classic AABA, we would go right back to the A section after that. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Is that what happens? No! We get this sudden, burn the bridge, bet the store, baby's coming home no more. Whoa, okay, so a lot of things happened there. First of all, we went from 4/4, a more standard time signature, to cut time, which is basically the same thing, just a little bit bouncier. That's the C with a line through it. We also, instead of freely, remember the tempo was marked freely before, meaning that whoever was playing the role, in the original it was Sutton Foster, could take a lot of time with each sentence. No more. Now we get wide swing. We are swinging, we are cooking, we are jazzing, and look at this dynamic marking. That's a big old F, which stands for forte, and that is not the same as piano or even mezzo piano. We have this big, shocking musical shift from this slow, free section that's piano to this big, brassy, bouncy forte section, and it's a big, big surprise. And the other thing is that this is a totally new melody that we haven't heard before. So rather than completing the AABA of a jazz standard that they've been setting up, they throw that out, they throw the old song out, and they start basically a brand new song. I think this is brilliant because it mirrors what Millie, the character, is doing in the moment, where she's ripping up her ticket home and she's throwing that away and starting a new life for herself. And that's mirrored by, they throw out the old AAB, they don't finish it, they start a brand new song that's brassier, bouncier, and even jazzier. I love it. It's brilliant. Now, in this new section, there are a lot of things that just scream jazz at you. For example, we were talking about alterations and extensions before. I mean, look at these two chords. Like, just listen to them. This is the first one, and this is the second one. Listen to how frickin' jazzy that is. That's crazy. The other thing is there's chromatics in the melody. So a chromatic melody uses kind of every note on the piano, even if it's not in the major scale. So the major scale skips a couple notes, you'll notice. For example, this A flat major scale I'm about to play, that skipped a bunch of notes. For example, in the whole scale, I never played those notes. Right? But a chromatic melody doesn't skip any notes. For example, here, this section, not for the life of me, that uses an E natural. Now you'll notice in the key signature, we got a big old E flat. E's are supposed to be flat in the major scale in this key. But we use that E natural anyways because that's what gives us that very chromatic sound, which is also very, very stereotypical of jazz. The last thing I want to point out here that's reminiscent of traditional jazz standards is, once again, that AABA song form. If we really do just throw out the first AAB, forget about it, start fresh, take this burn the bridge, bet the store, and call this our A melody. Burn the bridge, bet the store, baby's coming home no more, not for the life of me. We call that our A melody? Well, guess what? It repeats. Break the lock, post my bail, done my time, I'm out of jail, not for the life of me. And again, there, the second time we go through the A melody, the only note that changes is that last note. That's very customary. That was true of the unfinished AABA that we threw out. The second time we went through the A melody, the last note was different. And it's true of this section, and it's true of a lot of jazz standards as well that follow that AABA song form. But then we've done the A melody twice here, so let's go on to a B melody, something totally different. A life that's gotta be more than one light town where the light is always red. Gotta be more than an old ghost town where the ghost ain't even dead. With a big slide up to our final A section. Again, notice the chromatics in this section. A life that's gotta be more. In just that one bar of music. You see we're using all those notes that are right next to each other on the piano. That's chromatics. That's jazz, baby. So we get this big old slide up to Dad, clap your hands just because don't you know that where I am and where I was. Again, this is the A melody again. There are some embellishments that have been made to it. Obviously, the first couple of A melodies didn't start with the high C. Also, check this out. Clap your hands. That's chromatics right there. That's C and B natural that are right next to each other, even though, look at the key signature, there's a B flat. B's should be flat, but no. Clap your... That is a B natural. That's jazzy. Clap your hands just because. And also here, where I am and where I was. That little figure at the end of the first 4 bars of the A melody was originally down the octave, right? Baby's coming. That's the same as where I am and. But then it was baby's coming home no more. And now we just take those notes and move them up the octave. Where I was. So again, that's just embellishing it for the final time through the A melody. I say final time. Uh-oh. Look. Another surprise. We're going back to the B section again. So this song keeps surprising us. We keep almost thinking it's going to end, and then we're shocked and surprised when something new happens. Here we have the B melody again. You see, I gotta be more than a country wife, making babies till I croak. Gotta be more than a leading role in a farmer's daughter joke, days of yore. So here we have a little embellishment the second time through the B melody as well, where it used to be, where the ghost ain't even dead, where the ghost ain't even dead. But now we add a quarter rest before, in a farmer's daughter joke. So the rhythm's a little different. And then we go back to the A melody, again, with extra embellishments. Days of yore, kind and gentle, ask me if I'm sentimental. I love that when she says, ask me if I'm sentimental, we have these clarinets and saxophones doing these, this squiggly line means glissando, which is where they go like, it's a very sentimental sound. Then she goes, not for the life of, and we think we're gonna get me. Finally, the song's coming to an end. It's been surprising us at every turn. We keep thinking it's gonna end and then it doesn't, but now finally it's gotta end, right? No! There's one more surprise up Jeanine Tesori's sleeve, and that's called a tag, which once again is a very classic jazz thing. where you repeat the last line a few times. So we get this ba-da-da-da, and then we get not for the life of, not for the life of, not for the life of me. And then finally, we resolve and we end. And yet, there's still no button because we go headlong directly into the opening number of the show. So imagine, if you will, that you're sitting in the audience and a performer you've never heard of comes out and does this song that keeps shocking and surprising you. In the span of 2 minutes, she shows off how sweet and gentle she can be in that first free section with all of these mezzo pianos and piano dynamic markings. And then immediately, bah, she tears up this ticket. She throws away the old song with the ticket. She starts singing this brassy, jazzy thing with all of these chromatic notes, all of these embellishments. The moment you think it's going to end, nope, there's another B melody. Nope, there's another A melody. Nope, there's another tag. And I mean, it's Sutton Foster, so she sounds incredible and she's just so captivating to watch. Of course, this musical makes her a star. Now, that's not to take away from, you know, Gimme Gimme and all the other great songs that Sutton Foster got to sing in Thoroughly Modern Millie, but I really think that the fact that this was the way audiences were introduced to Sutton Foster is a big part of what allowed her to become the star that she was always born to be. If you like this video, make sure you click like on the YouTube player and subscribe so I can see you here next time on Music Theater Theory. Whoa! Peace out, y'all.